Good evening, Broncos country. We are live, but before we get started with tonight's episode, we want to make sure we have all of our platforms included for tonight's discussion. All right, and I see green check marks across the board. Welcome in, everyone, to another installment of the Orange and Blue View podcast. I am your host, Ron White. On that side of me, you know him, you love him, my co host, Mr. Dylan Vaughn Arts. Dylan, how are you doing today on this nice, fun, but yet cold Saturday?
I was gonna say I'm freezing my butt off. I thought I had it pretty bad, but once you told me you're over in the I believe the 30s right now, maybe it's not too bad here. Maybe I'm just crying a little too much. But otherwise doing good and happy to be talking Broncos with y'all again.
Yes, I'm happy to be talking Broncos with you guys as well. And yep, in the 30s. And, hopefully we can warm up soon. But, it is that time of year. So, you get what you get. It's all good. Good to be again with you guys on another Saturday talking Broncos. And I'm going to get into some of the comments tonight, guys. But Dylan, we've had a lot of news this week as it pertains to, the Broncos staff and, some members of the staff getting interviews and getting poached. And as of today, there are actually a few tidbits that came out of the Mile High City as it pertains to Darren Muji. So the longtime personnel executive for the Denver Broncos is now the general manager for the New York Jets as of today. So he will be joining up with new head coach Aaron Glenn. That's going to be interesting. And, just some background on Muji, prior to him getting into the personnel portion of it, he spent some time with the Falcons and the Cardinals. But he kind of moved up the ranks from the scouting intern back in 2013 all the way up to the assistant general manager as of right now. So, what are your thoughts as far as the Broncos and that staff kind of gaining recognition? We already know through Sean Payton he has a large network within the NFL. So, what are your thoughts there as far as him moving on? You're muted, Dylan.
Whoops. Okay, there we go. Um, it's great for Moby, obviously. Going up through the ranks, like you mentioned, he's been with the Broncos for quite a while. Been with 3 different uh, Super Bowl teams,
Mm-hmm.
which is very good on his resume and partially why he got the job. And I believe when the Broncos were doing that search, Aaron Glenn, uh, when they were searching for head coach a while back, Aaron Glenn, he was a part of those meetings. So
Mm-hmm.
nice to see them pair back up in New York. Hopefully they can turn it around there because that organization has been god awful, even though they've built some good rosters, had some good players, but maybe George Payton, that is, rubbed off on him a bit, and maybe he can bring a more of a winning and stable culture to the Jets.
Yeah, I do. I do wish him luck in his new endeavor as a GM for the New York Jets, and they're going to need him because that organization is in disarray. um, starting all the way up to the top, from Woody Johnson all the way down, and they have a lot of key decisions to make. Um, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers, and then from there, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams might be on the outs. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I'm I like the decision. I like the fact that he was able to get hired, and kind of wish him well, for sure. And then the next piece of news is David Shaw and Declan Doyle being interviewed for the offensive coordinator position for the Chicago Bears. So I believe Shaw was interviewed a while back for that head coach job there. And I guess they were impressed and they wanted to maybe bring him in again for the OC. So I know with Doyle, I know Doyle's been with the Broncos for the past 2 years, and I know he previously worked for Sean Payton on the Saints staff. So it's we'll see what happens there as far as those interviews. Again, it's good that these people are getting that recognition, getting those interview requests. It just goes to show you, Dylan, that the Broncos are slowly but surely being back on the map, obviously, with how they perform this season, that good coaching staff, and, just that name of Sean Payton and how it travels. But, if they do, take on, I do wish them well as well. But it's good to see that, the coaching staff and some of the members there are getting some of these requests.
Absolutely. That just goes to show that Sean Payton built up a great staff, and George Payton as well with the executives he's put around him. There was a while there where we thought, hey, maybe Vance Joseph and Davis Webb are leaving town, but now it's Chris Banjo, David Shaw,
Mhm.
and the like getting those looks. So it's great. It sucks to see just because we had such a successful season. Went past expectations, right? And now people are starting to pick the bones. It's like, hey man, we're still building this thing up. Let's try and keep the gang together a little
Yeah.
bit. But that's the NFL. There's going to be turnover, and with Mowgli being in the Jets, there are some interesting pieces over there that hey, maybe Denver could look to steal from him. Get that personal connection there.
Yes, and we will get into that shortly. But before we do, just want to see who all is in the chat joining us tonight. And we'll start off with Mr. Mike S. Thank you, Mike, for tuning in. It's always good to see you, my guy. He says, "What's up, Ron, Dylan, Scott, and Broncos Country? What's up with you, Mike? Hopefully you are doing well. It's good to see you, my man." And we got Daniel Berry Sports Highlights coming in with evening. Evening to you as well, sir. Hopefully you are doing well on this nice Saturday. And we got the Papa Bear, Mr. David McElrath, coming in. Thank you, David. We appreciate you as always, my man. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country. Don't trade for a wide receiver, draft one. Hashtag let's go, Bo." Yeah, we'll see what the Broncos are thinking there, David. But again, thank you for coming in. We appreciate you as always. And we got Mr. Ernie Mays coming in from Facebook. Thank you, Ernie. He says, "Go Broncos country only." Emphasis on that only. I like it, my guy. Go Bo Nix 4-6. Yes, yes. Broncos country is the only team that matters. It's the most important. And we got our quarterback and we're good to go. But again, Ernie, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it, my guy. And let's see who else we have here. We got Mr. Roy Osborne coming in from Facebook. Thank you, Roy. He says, "Hey there, Ron and Dylan. Trying to stay warm here." Yes, Roy. We all are. Yeah, we all are definitely trying to stay warm. It's this weather's, I guess it's that time of year, obviously, but I'm looking at the temps. I'm like, this cold in Georgia? I'm not liking these temperatures, but it is what it is. But thank you for coming in again, Roy. We appreciate it. All right, Dylan. So speaking of what you were just talking about as pertains to maybe some players over there in New York that the Broncos may have interest in. I know there is one wide receiver that is very intriguing. I know for you, because you and I have talked about it on numerous occasions, and for me as well. But what are your thoughts on, just for Broncos country to be aware of, your thoughts on the Broncos doing a trade for Mr. Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets?
I am absolutely 100% just in love with Garrett Wilson. He's not a Bronco, but I followed him pretty closely, and I think he's a weapon that this offense really could use. Obviously, you're gonna have to trade for him. I know. Oh my God, that's so terrible. But say you do have to give up that first round pick. where you're not going to go get a weapon anyway, right? Like we're looking at Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Emeka Egbuka. These guys are great, right? But draft picks can be used to get proven commodities, and Garrett Wilson is exactly that. He's a great route runner. He gets separation, makes insane touchdown catches, and would really boost this offense. And I know there's some really good guys in the draft, like I just mentioned. Emeka Egbuka, I absolutely love him. He's one of my draft crushes. But why don't we get the more established Ohio State guy who's already in the league? He's gone through those reps. I mean, obviously, even with Aaron Rodgers and having kind of a weird season, he put up some pretty good numbers. I mean, he was third in targets and fifth in receptions, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 6 drops. You know, he kind of wants to even improve there. But again, some wishy-washy QB play this year, and I absolutely would love to add him to this offense. And a first-round pick, I don't care. That's fine with me if you're going to go out and improve this offense anyway.
Okay. Yep. Just going to pull a few, I guess, sentiments from the chat to see if some people agree with you or if there's some disagreements. Got David Youngkin coming in. Thank you, David. It's always good to see you here, my guy. He says, why give up a first-round pick? I'm not saying that there is a better wide receiver in the draft, but there has to be a good wide receiver in the draft. And then we also have, Duke Rules coming in. Thank you. He says, I wouldn't mind only if we give up maybe a third. And then String Guy. Thank you, String Guy. It's going to cost your first round pick. Maybe it's worth it though. And so yeah, looks like there's some people agree with you, some don't. I've really gone back and forth on this, Dylan. And I think I'm looking at it more from a true need perspective. Garrett Wilson would be awesome to have. Coming in, he would be an immediate upgrade in the wide receiver group. Wide receiver 1 for sure. Great hands. Route running is great. He does everything well as a wide receiver for sure. But and kind of examining the Broncos roster, I just think they need to keep that first round pick. I think they need, because they need to address other positions and or a wide receiver that you think can be the talent of a Garrett Wilson. Now again, we know that the draft is a crapshoot. We understand that. But I mean, coming from one of the wide receiver universities in Ohio State, you mentioned the name, Emeka Egbuka. I think he can be that guy that's very Garrett Wilson-like. And if he's there, take a fly on him, draft him. But I also think tight end is a bigger need. Keep that first round pick. You hope Tyler Warren falls to you. If not, hopefully you can get Colston Loveland. He should be there. So I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective of, while Garrett Wilson would be great, I just think, there are other needs. I put wide receiver from an offensive perspective. I put wide receiver as the third need. For me, it's tight end and running back and then wide receiver. And I just think that's how the Broncos should approach, the draft. And of course, with that, not sacrificing their first round pick on a wide receiver. Now, to your point, let's say if we were to go, or if the Broncos were to go with one, I know you love him. Let's say we were to go with him. Now, his contract, he's still in his rookie deal. I know he's eligible for an extension this offseason. So they're willing, if the Broncos want to trade for him, they can, make a case to extend him, to trade and then extend him, or wait another year. I also believe he has that 5th year option as well. Mm-hmm. So there's no immediate need to, extend him. And given kind of where they are with, I know they're going to have some money, obviously, in this year coming up, but um, so I think they can extend them if they want. Obviously, there are other contracts, the Nick Benito. We'll see what happens with kind of how some of the other dominoes fall. But you know, it wouldn't be as bad, I guess, financially if you were to get with them. I guess I'm just looking at it more from I don't want to sacrifice any draft capital. I want as much draft capital to stay in place so that the Broncos can get as many weapons for Bo as they can.
Absolutely, and you brought up some of the other positions, running back and tight end, which actually are tight end more so top heavy. There are some guys later that I do like. Running back, you have plenty. I guess I'm just looking into the framework of like, hey, we could get this piece right if you say it's just that first round pick, which there's a good possibility it's more than that, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you get your wide receiver one, which they haven't had, and you pair him with Sutton, Mims. There's a lot of good running backs also in the draft. I like a plethora. There's so many guys I like: Caleb
Lots.
Johnson, Marion Hampton,
Dylan Sampson,
Dylan Sampson,
Trevion Henderson, Quinshon Junkets. Yeah, they're
I
all
like
over.
I like Devin Neal a great
Yeah.
deal as well. I've been watching him quite a bit recently. Um, I just maybe I'm just too set on wanting Garrett Wilson. I do really like him as a talent. He is only 24 as well, and you mentioned you will have to pay him. I'm totally fine with that. I don't really mind that because obviously there's Chris Godwin out there, right? And he's a guy I do really like as a fit for Denver and free agency. And there's T. Higgins. You're going to be paying those guys as well, both older, injury concerns as well. Garrett Wilson doesn't really have that. Um, I can honestly see both sides of the argument here, right? Keep your draft picks. Maybe you want to take because you want to take a Colson Loveland. It's like, hey, maybe there's guys lower there like a Gunnar Helm, Arande, right? Guys like that you can get a little later in the draft. But ultimately, I think Garrett Wilson would be the move for me if we did end up trading for a outside help at wide receiver because Sean Payton, he can be an aggressive guy, and that's somewhere he could look to go.
Yeah, and let's say now with the addition of Muji on the staff, they might can work out, a better deal than just a first round pick. Maybe a second does. Now, if it's a second round pick, I'm for that all day. If they say, hey, we'll take a second round pick for Garrett Wilson and maybe like a later round, yes, by all means. But I just think with first round, given kind of that I'm more so worried about the tight end because you're right, running back is very deep. But I'm just looking at it, Dylan, that this team has not had a true consistent tight end in years, and you're seeing it now that's such a gaping hole on this offense, and to have one of those premier tight ends in the like a Warren or a Loveland, it would just do wonders for both. And again, you're right. They could go in the second round and get a Helm. Helm is nice as well. Mason Taylor. So I would say those premium rounds, like maybe those first two rounds at tight end, you're probably getting a good player, but I don't know. I just don't want to. I want to keep as many draft picks as I can for the Denver Broncos. I want to keep as many as I can. So, but I know a lot of people in the chat here, which we'll get into, are talking about the free agency, and I'm thinking that's where ones that are free agents, the Broncos are probably going to look. I know we mentioned it last week. We mentioned T. Higgins. And then we also mentioned Chris Godwin. So I'm thinking that might be the route they go. Whereas though we don't have to sacrifice any draft capital for them. But yeah, I just think as many weapons that are non-wide receiver, at least for me, is why I want to keep that first round pick.
Definitely.
All right. Let's see. Going back to the chat here. Um, got Julian Gallo coming in. Thank you. Says trade for Andrews. He would be cheaper in both ways and use that first on a wideout. Yeah, yeah, Julian. That's a possibility. Um, I haven't really looked at um some of the. I haven't looked at all of the tight ends that that could be available for trade. I haven't looked at all the contracts and see who some of them can come off of. Some teams can come off of. I know Andrews is probably one with the emergence of Isaiah Likely, that the Ravens may want to do something. And then depending on, I think this might be a little bit of a long shot, Dylan, but depending on where the 49ers are, even maybe moving on from Kittle.
Ooh.
Possibly. um, Kittle's getting old though. I know this Broncos team is very young. I think it's the third youngest roster in the NFL, and looks like Sean Payton wants to keep it young. So I'm just not sure if Kittle is an option for them, or they're thinking about it. But I know they have a good relationship, obviously, with Shanahan and John Lynch. So never say never, but I do think that could be possibility, although a long shot. But yeah, Julian, your point here as well, taking that maybe trading for an Andrews, or getting someone else in free agency, even like an Austin Hooper from New England, could maybe do the trick and then use that first rounder on a Luther Burden if he's there, or Emeka Buka.
Yeah, thank you for coming in, Julian. This is a really interesting thought here. Mark Andrews, obviously, he's not having the best of months here
right now. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it sucks because he is a really good player. He's had started the year slow, then he picked it back up, kind of got to his usual form, and then kind of butterfingered it there at the end of the championship game. You hate to see that, but that's definitely an option. Maybe, like you mentioned, Ron, Isaiah Likely, he's emerging there, and seems to be not necessarily tight end one, but he could easily take over that role there in Baltimore. And you bring up Kittle as well, and while I do have some concerns, he's injured.
Yes.
He is older, but maybe the Broncos need some veteran leadership in that receiving room, not just wide receiver, but tight ends, and maybe just a veteran voice in that room, because you do have all these young guys, but you got to kind of have someone who's been to a Super Bowl, a player who's been there, rather, to just kind of rally the troops and keep everyone together and kind of say, hey, like, this is how we get there. We need to have this mindset. And while I don't think it's likely they trade for Kittle, I think just in general having a veteran presence in that room would work wonders. And another name just in free agency to look at would be Juwan Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He's played with Sean Payton there for a couple of years in tight end, so that's another guy you could bring in with some veteran experience, and he already knows Sean Payton. So there's several ways they could go for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. Juwan Johnson, he knows Payton, knows the offense. So I would say if any tight end is to come to Denver, that would probably be the one.
Yeah,
just with that familiarity factor. But thank you, Julian, for coming in. We appreciate it. All right, going through the chat. Got Mike S. I would love to get Godwin. Yeah, Mike S. Godwin's good. Now, we'll see how he looks, post injury here, coming up next season. But I like Godwin. I've always liked Godwin. Sure hands, Billy can just get open. And that's what the Broncos need, Dylan. The Broncos just need someone who can get open consistently. And Godwin, Godwin can do that. So I'm all open. And I think for Godwin would be, cheaper than Higgins. Higgins is going to demand a pretty penny. So if they can go out and get Godwin for, not as much to help out this offense, and be one of Bo's favorite target, I'm down for it. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming in, Mike. I think he's probably my number one get in terms of a wide receiver in free agency. You add him to this team, you get Sutton and Mims on the outside, and then Godwin can kill it in the slot. I mean, and a reliable target. He gets open, something we need. There wasn't a lot of separation outside of some deep balls to Marvin Mims there,
Mhm.
but just someone who could get open in the short game is something that's been very lacking. That's why I like guys like Godwin, Garrett Wilson, and Emeka Ibuka.
Yeah. I mean, you're missing that slot, that true slot presence. And, Godwin can provide that. Actually, Godwin really can go deep or slot, and he's very
Yeah,
versatile. And also, this guy that Mike S is about to mention here is also versatile. Um, yeah, I've been watching more film, Mike, of Emeka Ibuka. Um, and he's so underrated to me. Just what he's able to do, Dylan. And I think some of his game is also very underappreciated. Like you saw in that championship game, just how he's in there getting his hands dirty when it comes to blocking. And that's what Sean Payton wants. Sean Payton wants a receiver out there that is going to block. And how they've lined him up, they've lined him up, in the end arounds. He's been in the slot, he's been deep, and just kind of how he uses his route running to create that separation. So I would just say he's a all around good receiver, and I think he can fit in really any offense. So if this is the way to go, Mike, again, if they do intend to draft a wide receiver first round, I'm okay with Ibuka. I'm okay with that pick for sure because it's another solid, versatile weapon for both.
yeah, and I don't just not mind it, man. I love it. He adds an element to this offense, like we've both mentioned, that we just don't have right now. Someone who's a great route runner, someone who can get open quick. You don't always want to be throwing 50-50 balls to Sutton or hoping that Mims breaks away deep, right? You want someone who could work the middle, work the slot, and has sure hands, is a more than willing and pretty great blocker as a wide receiver. Now he's not going to be taking on linebackers or nothing, but when you could
Yeah.
maybe get him to get in on the run game, stop some corners, some safeties, he's absolutely capable of doing that, and would be an amazing get for this offense to really open it up more. Someone Sean Payton, I think, would love.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Definitely. Thank you, Mike, for coming in. And we got Mr. Phil McLaughlin coming in. Thank you, Phil, from Facebook. It's good to see you, my guy. Says, good evening, Ron and Dylan. I don't think a first round pick would do. Therefore, I pass. Yeah, Phil. Yeah, again, that may not even do the trick. Um, and then again, for me, a first round pick is just too much. Again, given where we are and some of the other needs on the roster. But as I mentioned, I don't know if you heard it near the top of the show. Now with Muji there, who knows? They may be able to work out something where, it's not as expensive as a first round pick, but who knows? But I'm with you. Like if it's first round, you can miss me on it. Um, but if you do maybe second in a later round or something like that, or like a pick swap later or something, I can get behind that. I can get behind that.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, Phil. Always good to see you, my friend. And yeah, it might take a first round pick. I probably would. Let's be real. I mean, he's
Yeah.
an awesome talent. He's only 24. Um, and like you mentioned, he is with the Jets now. Maybe you could get something a little on the cheaper, maybe a second round pick, like you mentioned. Obviously, he's not just going to give the guy away just because he's been with us for a few years. He's got to make his own stamp as a GM and take the league by storm in his own way. Uh, I love the guy so much. I really think he would make this offense special, but like you mentioned, it is going to depend on the price, and it could be that it's even more than just a first round pick because he is that kind of talent.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Phil, for coming in. We appreciate it. And MBLEX test prep coming in. Thank you. Says Sean Payton loves Ohio State players. Yeah, he does. Does for sure. And the way I see this, Dylan, I have the Broncos coming away with at least two players from that championship team. Um, it could be both running backs, or I'm thinking Ibuka and a running back. Um, I like both running backs. Again, I'm more. I like Trevion Henderson a little more than
Mhm.
Quinshawn Judkins, but I again both are nice. And we just talked about Ibuka, so yeah, test prep. I would love it. He loves it. I love it. You know, they know how to train their players. They play a very pro style offense at Ohio State. So a lot of players come out of there just NFL ready. Same thing you have with LSU and a lot of their running backs and receivers. It's the same. Um, so yeah, if you know if we get one of those Ohio State players, I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Actually, I would love it. I would love it. So
Absolutely. Thanks for coming in test prep. And yeah, I mean, he just a couple years ago, he went and got Chris Olave,
that's a lot.
Ohio State. Uh, was Michael Thomas from Ohio State as well?
Yep, Michael Thomas is
Okay,
from
there
Ohio
you
State.
go. Why not make it a trifecta, huh? Let's go for a third time.
And if I'm not mistaken, Marshawn Lattimore's from Ohio State.
There you go. Hey, let's make it happen. Let's speak it into existence. You know, let's get Egbuka. Let's get one or both of the running backs. Why not? I mean,
Yeah,
if Sean thinks they're gonna fit, and I do think either of those three players will go swing for it, man. Why not?
yeah, yes, most definitely. Thank you, MBLX Test Prep. We appreciate it. Like a lot of people are in there saying no Higgins. Higgins is Higgins is very injury prone, and just I think I'm with you guys in the sense that um you know the amount that he's going to demand and how many games he's played, you know, if he's been in the league, it's just they don't add up. It's so, but you know, there's going to be team out there obviously willing to give him all that money and probably look at a team like New England. I know there are a lot of rumors out there that New England's um, kind of in the market for a big time wide receiver to help out Drake May. So, but yeah, Higgins is just too injury prone. Very, very talented though. Very talented. I mean, the Broncos saw it up front. Riley Moss got his dose of of T. Higgins. So, but yeah, I just think for the Broncos, yeah, that the injury history is just, I think, is why they're going to be out.
Injury history, money. I mean, would it be nice? Absolutely, but it's just I'm willing to spend on Chris Godwin
Yeah,
instead, man, and he adds something to this offense that you don't really have. T. Higgins, obviously, it's not a one for one with Sutton, but you kind of get a similar skill set there. So I'd rather diversify a little bit there instead of copy paste in a sense.
yeah, for sure. And I'm seeing comments in here as well. Thank you, Mike S. About Najee Harris. I'm not a Najee Harris fan. Um, I mean, would he help? Would he help this Denver Broncos running back room? Sure. I mean, you know, he'll be the best back coming in, you know. But I don't know. Nothing from him really wows me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I know he can catch a little. He is a hard runner, but I don't know. I kind of want someone a little bit more dynamic. And I just don't see that from Najee's game.
Yeah, I hear you. And then the 4 years he's been there, the Steelers' offensive line's been a little shaky. Maybe that kind
Yeah,
of contributes, but uh, I don't agree with the Javonte Williams 2.0 at the very least. I mean, this guy's got 4,000-yard seasons,
yeah,
but like you mentioned, it's like not anything special necessarily. But I could also see Sean Payton saying, "Hey, I do want some kind of veteran presence in this room." You know, like let's say you draft a young guy, right, and you pair him with a Najee. Not saying they would be Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, but I could see him wanting maybe that veteran presence. But Yeah, I don't agree with the Javonte Williams 2.0
Yeah,
there.
I'm
But
with you, Dylan. Yeah,
I understand where he's coming from. It's similar skill set, but
yeah,
kind of. But
a little. I mean, I think we know that Najee Harris's vision is way better.
yeah,
And you're right. I mean, their average yards to carry. I mean, I don't have to look at the numbers, and I know Harris is far better in that category. I just I don't know. When I'm looking at how Peyton and what he said in his um, postseason presser, and kind of how he's used running backs, I don't see Najee as being the fit in the sense of that versatility.
mm-hmm.
Like I said, he could do some things well, but you're looking at like the Alvin Kamara's, and I look for a running back, and that's going to be in the draft. Now he may get like an Aaron Jones, because I actually think Aaron Jones somewhat fits that mold of the versatility that he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were to go the free agent route, look at someone like an Aaron Jones to come in, to catch it out of the backfield, line up as a receiver, a hard runner. But his guy is going to come from the draft. And you see, again, every running back in the draft, Dylan, from what I've seen, have great hands. They can catch it. They can catch it for sure. Marion Hampton, some of those later round ones like the Keith Allen.
Mm-hmm.
There's also another one that fits that mold. So I see Rashard Smith out of SMU fits that mold
Yeah.
as well. So I see that kind of being the lane that they go in, at least in the draft. But yeah, I just don't see Najee in Denver. Just me.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Let's see who else. And then we got Mr. David Youngkin coming in with the super chat. Thank you, David. Thank you. He says, what inside linebacker would you guys get in free agency? Dylan, I'll let you go first on this one. Who do you like?
There's a few names there. Obviously, it's not like a super deep class. Is a little more top heavy this year in free agency, but ideally, I would like Zach Bond.
Mhm.
Dude had an amazing season with the Eagles, and I think this year you kind of have to go into free agency with the mindset to get an inside linebacker. There's some guys in the draft, but I'm not particularly in love with any of them. There's no one who's blowing my mind, except that I do like Jihad Campbell. I think he'd be a very good player.
Yep.
Are we going to be in position to get him? That's another story. We don't know that. Obviously, we're still like, 80 something days from the draft.
86 days,
yeah. So a lot of things can change, but if I had to pick my top guy, it would definitely be Zach Bond from the Eagles.
Yeah. Zach Bond is a good option. That's probably the more realistic option, David. But if I were GM and or Sean Payton, I would want Dre Greenlaw. That guy's a beast. Again, Zach Bond is a beast in his own right. He had a phenomenal year as a inside linebacker. For him to actually even be nominated for Defensive Player of the Year is just sick.
Yeah.
So just imagine, like, those inside linebackers usually don't get those nominations for the AP Defensive Player of the Year. So for him to get that nod just kind of goes to show you the type of season he's had. And I know under a Vic Fangio defense, they tend to break out the inside linebackers. But he would be great. But yeah, I like the passion, the aggression that Dre Greenlaw plays with. Just his tackling ability. I would definitely, love those traits in Denver. Also in coverage. He's good in coverage as well. And as we've seen from this year, Dylan, these linebackers that are currently on the Broncos roster in coverage are horrible. They're bad guys. So definitely need to have an upgrade there for sure.
Yeah. And I do the one thing about Greenlaw with Saleh coming back to San Francisco, maybe he wants to stay put. But if that's not a factor, I would love to have him. You need those fiery guys, the Aqib Talibs of the defense who are gonna get everyone riled up and ready to go crack some skulls.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're right. You're right on there with Salah coming back. But again, I just don't know. Yeah, see, I don't know how I don't even know their numbers and what their salary cap situation is because they still have to pay Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and
Um,
you're paying already. You're paying Debo,
and
Ayuk,
you already
Kittle
right.
already.
Yeah,
Like
you just signed Ayuk,
Trent
right?
Williams.
Yeah. So I don't know, the implications of that for the 49ers, which again, given that you would think that, some of those players will probably be walking.
Mm-hmm.
But only time will tell. But thank you, David, for coming in. We appreciate it. Let's see who else we have here in the chat. I love all the prospect and draft questions, guys.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
we got Mr. Phil McLaughlin coming back in. Thank you, Phil. Says a number of mocks have Ashton Genty from Boise State coming to us at pick number 20. What are your thoughts? Phil, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, Phil. I would say Genty is my favorite draft prospect. Um, he's just so dynamic. And the year he's had, I just think his running style, Dylan, what he can do, even catching the ball, how they use him at Boise State. Just imagine what the Broncos can do with that type of player, um, in the running back group. So I think personally, Phil, I would love it, but again, I just don't know if even if Genty's there, if they're going to pick him because Genty is your bell cow back. He's going to be on there every down, and again, Peyton said that that's kind of not how he sees the running back room going. It's more of a by committee. It's you know, you know, two running backs probably doing different things out on the field at different times. So I don't think Genty fits that mold. And that's why, again, as I said not too long ago, I could see both Ohio State running backs actually coming to Denver because both of them can they have different styles. Um, but yeah, I would love it personally, Phil. I just don't know even if he's there, um, that the Broncos are going to pull the trigger.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, right? I know the big mock draft that came out was Mel Kiper, and he's the goat. He he sees a fit there, right? But is he going to fall to 20? I think absolutely not.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, and you know, you mentioned Sean Payton talking about the multi running back system, right? A committee. Maybe his mind changes if Genty's there.
yeah,
I mean, like you mentioned, he's such a dynamic back. I mean, the contact balance, the burst, the angry running style, and he's an every down back, and that would absolutely just make this offense so much more dynamic. We were talking about, wide receivers earlier and getting different archetypes there. Ashton Genty is the archetype. He is the guy
Mhm.
that's going to make this offense go, and it takes a lot of pressure off your quarterback. Obviously, Bo Nix didn't really get that this year, and you want that for a rookie quarterback. And even now going into his second year, you need to have that run game, and Ashton would put them way over. But like I mentioned at the top, probably not going to be there. But hey, we can dream.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be there either, Phil. I mean, I think um, there are probably two teams to watch out for that might snag him. You probably look at Chicago coming in now with Ben Johnson, and how he likes to run the football. We saw that obviously with Detroit, so that might be something they use their pick on. In Dallas um, is probably in searching for a running back too. So those are probably um, be the spots for Genty. But yeah, if he's there, I'm all for it. I'm all for that. Just don't know if the Broncos will be, but I'm all for it. But again, thank you, Phil. Good question. Good question. All right, let's see who else. And we got Rodney coming back in. Thank you, Rodney. What do you guys think of Malachi Starks? Can Denver get him? I don't think so, Rodney. I'm a huge Malachi Starks fan. And just for everyone here in the chat, I'm a Georgia fan, so of course. um, so showing a little bit of bias there, but yeah, anybody from Georgia on defense, I'm automatically a fan. And this guy, I've been watching him all of his years at Georgia. The guy is just he's an athlete. Has just very smart when it comes to coverage, can cover, very aggressive. I think Rodney, if he's there, um, I would think long and hard if I were the Broncos. I mean, because safety is a need. We saw PJ Locke out there against Buffalo. Wasn't a good sighting. So having someone like a Malachi Starks, and think Dylan, he can be better than a Kyle Hamilton. That's the scary part. Like he has that in him. But I think he's going to go probably top 15. I don't see him falling in Denver just because of how talented he is.
Yeah, he would be great opposite Brandon Jones and make the secondary even stronger than it already is. Obviously, the cornerback trio played very well this year, and PJ Locke not so much. He kind of, if he's going to be on this team next year, it's not going to be as a starter. It can't be. Absolutely can't be. As for falling to Denver, the only way I see that happening, man, is like sometimes teams overthink it and they say, "Oh, well, look at his designation. He's a safety, right?" And sometimes teams overthink that, and talent falls all the time. Who knows? Maybe he could be one of those guys, and if he's there, I would love to take him. There's going into free agency, right? You're going to be looking at filling needs, so you can go into the draft and be a little more free with what you need. And some people might be like, "Why a safety really with our first round pick?" I don't think those people understand just how good this guy is. Like you mentioned, he could be a Kyle Hamilton or better. That's the type of athlete this guy is, and you're adding a great piece to a secondary that's already so strong. And there's nothing wrong with adding strength on strength.
Yes, guy's an animal. Really, all three of those top Georgia defensive prospects are animals. Mykel Williams, Malachi Starks, and Jalen Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't see Jalen may fall a little bit, but I think Mykel is going top 20. And yeah, I do see Malachi Starks going top 20, top 15. But yeah, Rodney, if he's there, I'm all about that. Again, I would think long and hard. But great questions. Thank you, sir, for coming in with that. All righty, let's looking at the time here. Oh, we're at 40 minutes, so about to start winding down here, guys. We'll take a few more, and then we're gonna call it a night. Let's see who else we have. We got Joe Brewer coming back in. Thank you, Joe. He says Alec Iomanner, maybe in the first round from Stanford. Yeah, he's a good one as well. I haven't. I've seen some of his film. I haven't really studied him a lot, but from what I've seen, Joe, he's definitely a good, solid wide receiver. I think how the Broncos can use him, kind of in the slot as well. I've seen he can block as well, so I do like him. But I'll have more of an assessment probably in the next week or two once I study him a little bit more. But he might be a target. He might be one of those though. I don't know if at 20, maybe if the Broncos trade back, he'll probably still be there and they eye him as a target. But I'll be down for that as well.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up this name, Joe. I'm actually a pretty big fan of him. Like similar to Ron, I haven't done like a deep dive necessarily on him yet, but if Igbuka is a good blocker, this dude is an excellent blocker as a wide receiver. And obviously, people, who cares if a wide receiver can block? When Sean Payton is throwing screens as much as he does, That's a huge asset, and he definitely filled that role. Like you said, at 20, I could see Sean falling in love with him, but does he take him at 20? I'm not so sure. He could definitely be a good weapon in this offense, and the word that gets thrown around a lot, right, is that Joker role
Yeah.
with the Broncos, and little Jordan Humphrey was kind of playing that because Greg Dulcich was amounted to nothing this season, unfortunately. Maybe you could see him, Aylmer, that is in that role as a big slot, a Joker type player. But yeah, I could see the Broncos going in that direction for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, Joe, yeah, we'll study him a little bit more. And I know as it gets closer to the draft, he'll be talked about, and we'll give some more analysis. But thank you for coming in with that name. And we got Mr. Phil McLaughlin coming back in. Thank you, Phil, from Facebook. He says, for your first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, you have Genty, Ibuka, Warren, and Loveland available. Who are you taking? Dylan, who are you taking?
This
That's a tough one.
I know, and well, I actually have my answer, but I'm trying to think of so I know Broncos country, myself included, big Tyler Warren guys, right? I think he'd be an absolute dog on this offense. Sean Payton likes to use that tight end. He likes to move him around, right? I kind of like Ashton Genty here, man. And it's not. This doesn't mean these other guys suck. I wouldn't take them here. I would absolutely take all four of these guys at 20. They're amazing talent, so they can help this team all in different ways. But Genty, that running style that he has, and this element that the Broncos haven't had, obviously, the passing game we've talked about a lot. And yes, the tight ends are lacking. But I just think this guy's a true game changer. He's such a violent runner. He can catch his contact balance. Just I could go on and on about this guy, right? And with how good this offensive line is, especially run blocking, I mean, you just didn't have the horses in the stable to make waves in there, right? And that's why Sean Payton's not using him. And you look at the stats, back to like talking about Alvin Kamara, he absolutely uses his running backs in the passing game. And that doesn't mean he's going to completely supplement the passing game with his running back, right? But he's going to be used in those areas. I just can't pass that up. And I do like Warren, but there's some guys later like Gunnar Helm could be a good weapon. He's not as flashy as the Lovelands and the Warrens, but he's a guy who, again, talking about Aylmer, Gunnar Helm, he could be very useful in that game and whatnot. But for me, said a lot to say, not too much, I guess. But Ashton Genty's got to be that guy for me. I think that's a bit.
Yeah, I agree. It's a hard one, but I agree. And you said everything perfectly. Just to add on to that, the Genty pick solves. Well, he's an impactful player, and it solves an immediate need. So you can just, once he's in the system, you just plug and play. With tight ends sometimes, Dylan, they can be a little bit. It takes a little longer for them to develop. And again, I don't foresee that being the case. Everyone's not going to come in having Brock Bowers numbers. But I do think Warren, can come in and definitely contribute, definitely be an impact from week one on, and Loveland as well. But I just think the running game this year, you look at the numbers of the running game, and it's just
dreadful.
It's horrible. And you bring in an Ashton Genty who can just help Bo Nix out, and move the chains. 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. Even he has the ability to break tackles. So just what the guy can do overall, and just what impact he can provide from day one, that's what I'm taking first.
Yeah, I totally agree. And obviously, this is hypothetical.
Right.
A couple of these guys aren't going to be at 20. And
Right.
but if we're just talking purely who we think would help the most, it's got to be Genty, man. And the best tight end that Sean Payton ever had, Jimmy Graham, it's a
Hmm.
third-round pick. I
Hmm.
mean, I think there's a little bit of recency bias with how good Brock Bowers is, and people are, and it's not that Warren's not good. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but I think people are getting into their heads that he's the next one, right? And he possibly could be,
Yeah.
but we haven't seen a season from a rookie tight end,
Yeah.
Lauren Bowers, ever. I mean, he's absolutely insane, and Genty's got to be the guy for me,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Phil. We appreciate you as always. All right. Just looking through the chat, just making sure I'm not missing anyone. All right. Think I think we're good. Again, guys, thank you all for tuning in to tonight's episode. We greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it. It's always good talking to you guys. This hour goes by so quickly every Saturday, but it's fun. It's fun. If you guys haven't done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel, Mile High Huddle, and then you like um, and share across all of the platforms. We'd greatly appreciate it. And if you have not done so already, make sure you follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. I am at Ron White NFL, and my partner here is at Dylan Von Arts MHH. Before we get out of here, I will turn it over to Dylan to shout out a few members who contributed to tonight.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for hopping in and showing us some love tonight. I don't know how we get to an hour almost every every Saturday. It's crazy, especially, post post the regular season. You guys are absolutely amazing. But I want to give a special shout out to those who showed us a little extra love tonight in our super chat superstars. David McGilrath, as always, kicking us off. Phil McLaughlin came in 1, 2, 3 separate times. Always good to see you, my man. That's awesome. David Yonkin, thank you so much. And Max Root, you guys are the reason we do this. And you keep the lights on for us, and you continue to come in and listen to us just chalk it up every week, and that's absolutely amazing. And if you have some questions that we maybe didn't get to today, make sure to leave some comments down below on YouTube, and we'll be sure to look through those and get back to you.
Yes, yes, most definitely. Again, guys, thank you all for tuning in tonight. Um, can't thank you all enough. Can't thank you all enough. And hope you guys have a great night and enjoy the championship games tomorrow. Dylan, before we get out of here, who you rooting for? Who are your picks?
I think that's a pretty easy one on the AFC side there. Go Bills, Bills Mafia. I'm going to be a Bills fan tomorrow, and I'm going to be absolutely sick, man. I just feel if the Chiefs win this one, they're probably going to win it all, unfortunately. On the other side, hey, man, like, why not Jaden Daniels, man? That's a fun team. But, oh, yeah, I think I'm probably rooting for Washington on the other side.
Yeah, I have the Bills. Because yeah, we got to be anti Chiefs. And then I don't know, the NFC is interesting. I think the Eagles are going to pull it out, though. I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders win, though,
Hmm.
because you know I think Quinn may have a good plan to try to stop Saquon, and then that leaves it up to Jalen Hurts. And from what I've seen recently, Jalen Hurts with that knee didn't look good. At least the last time I saw him, that was a few days ago. But they might shoot him up, and who knows, might be good to go there Sunday probably. But yeah, I think the Eagles are still gonna pull it out. So I got Buffalo and Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. So
There
we'll
we
see.
go.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, guys. Again, have a great night, and we will talk to you all next week. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.